Well, I'd say like on paper, the Energy roster is pretty good, but for some reason they're just like not clicking.
I think CLG right now is a pretty even opponent to us. I think it'll be a 50-50 matchup.
No matter what, mid 1v1, I'm confident.
The meta is slowly changing. Darshan is pretty happy to play like carry tops finally. We're like really confident on his carry top.
Darshan literally just 1v1s to win the game.
Oh my goodness, classic Darshan.
I think it'll be a really good test for us. I think it'll be a pretty good series.
All the way to the top I climb, and I'm never gonna quit till I get what's mine.
Good afternoon, fans. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles, and everybody has packed the LCS studio for a day of exciting matches. As you can see here, a little bit of North American pride, some USA 4th of July cosplay. Teams are in their last round of first looks, looking to grab one more victory before circling back for the second half of the summer split. Here you see CLG. They'll be starting off in the battle arena. They arrived a little early, got some practice in before their match. You see Stixay and Aframu, that bot lane there. Of course, going to be going up against Energy today. Phoenix One, though, has quite a game on their hands as they'll be going up against TSM. There you see Coach Charlie and the rest of the squad. Weldon with Biofrost, that newcomer who has been performing all split long, helping him with maybe that mental game, that pre-game ritual, making sure that he walks in confident as ever. And then, of course, here's Quas and the rest of Energy setting up on stage for that matchup against our defending champions in CLG. That will be a competitive one to say the least. Hello everyone, I'm James Dash Patterson, and returning to the analyst desk as always is Mark Zimmerman. Welcome back. How you doing?
You guys getting sick of me yet?
Not quite, not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah, happy 4th of July weekend.
Thanks.
To celebrate, I got you this giant donut.
Dude, that looks pretty good.
Right?
I had some eggs this morning. Didn't really have any
you needed
carb with it.
Okay, that's what you
big
need.
donut.
Something to absorb.
Yeah.
All the coffee
all
that
the
you had
grease.
that you had this morning just keep yourself away. Well, last night, 4 teams officially wrapped the first half of the split with Liquid and Team Envy walking away with victories. Now, this is the 3rd week in a row that Liquid has started Fabi, and the record continues to improve with their win over Cloud9 last night.
Right, it's kind of changed where when you see it on paper, you don't go like, wow, this is going to be great for Team Liquid, but it's definitely one of those more internal changes where something in the team dynamic just needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
Having a really smooth, even-keeled, kind of relaxed player in Fabi can help kind of mellow out the team when you might have a lot of personalities with Dardoch, Piglet, and Loco in a sense. When you pull somebody out of there, it can just really even the team out. And I think that's what you're seeing, where they're just performing better. I think the biggest indication of that was through the pause, through the Baron seal.
Yeah.
Like the team is okay with that.
They're still fine.
Yeah, and I think that was the kind of thing that a lot of us were looking for, to see this kind of growth in their attitudes. So,
as you can see here, Liquid pre-Fabi was 1 win, 3 losses. Now that was a couple iterations, one where they had Moon, as well as Piglet, then Dardoch and Piglet before swapping out Piglet for Fabi. With Fabi, 4 wins, 1 loss, so a significantly better record. Of course, we can look at strength of schedule and point at some of that kind of stuff to temper expectations here, but either way, the team is obviously performing much better with Fabi. Something's working. Another kind of fun thing to note is that 4 of 5 members of the team are actually formerly of Team Liquid Academy, so it is a very cool instance of seeing our challenger players, our more amateur guys, being able to step up and prove themselves on the LCS stage.
yeah, I mean, what's always interesting too is that the biggest mismatch people always consider between TLA and TL when they were scrimming all those internals back in the day was between Phoenix and Youngbin.
Yeah.
And Phoenix is kind of the lone survivor in a sense. So
Right.
It's fitting.
Yeah, the rest of the guys stepping up to the plate. I do want to highlight one player, though, in particular. We heard Matt credit Dardoch yesterday in his interview with how he helped the team from a mentality standpoint really get through that remade game and push forward and not let it affect their mental state, having lost the first game of the series.
I think that's a big point too, is talking about how they were down a game, winning a game, and then it got remade.
Right.
It wasn't like first game of the series, or you're up 1-0. Being down the game, it feels extra bad, but to have that kind of mentality to be like, don't worry, we're just going to run this back again on them.
Did it once, we can do it again.
Yeah, just the fact that they stomped 2 early games in a row basically was really impressive.
Right, and Dardoch himself has always been a vocal player individually, and here he was vocal about the fact that he was going to take it to Meteos, and he did just that, right? Here we see Loco Doko and the rest of the team in their pre-game huddle as usual, and this was him yesterday walking onto stage in between games far earlier than anyone else. You can kind of see the energy that he has, the fact that he is walking in confident, trying to pump up his teammates, making sure they have smiles on their faces. And, you know, it's just a really cool thing to see such a young player developing into a leader. And, you know, it's even more important when it is a roster that has gone through so many iterations in just, you know, the past 6 months.
Right. I mean, it's a young roster too, so it's going to need to be one of the young guys stepping up. And Dardoch is an extremely emotional player. We've always said that. When it manifests itself negatively, it can be very negative, but when it's positive, it's extremely positive. And yesterday was a day where he kept a good mindset, and you can see the impact that it has on a team when you have this young, you know, kind of playmaker being excited throughout the whole series, even though it's a long one, and being able to pump his teams up, you know, even on, game 4 in a sense, you know, being able to keep the energy up there is really important.
And now it's just about staying in that positive mind space for the rest of the split. We'll see if they can do that. Now, yesterday we also saw Echo Fox pick up Game 1 win against Team Envy. Unfortunately, they can't close it out yet again. So similar to their TSM series, they are able to pick up a victory, but they still can't take an entire series.
It's tough because they're a very grindy team, and they're going up against another pretty grindy team in Envy. And I always feel that like when two of similar styles meet, it's usually the one that's better. You don't see as many upsets.
Right.
Whereas you can say, you know, C9 and TL play pretty different, and an upset can happen. Here, it's two people playing the same style, and while Echo Fox grabs Game 1, it doesn't translate to the rest of the series, because as the games get longer and grindier, you see in Game 3 that, you know, eventually Envy just takes it, and I feel like that's how it went.
Yeah, and I think so with Fox, kind of the key thing, we've hit this before, is their inaction, their inability to be proactive and to make plays. On the flip side, Envy, now their story in the LCS has been a very interesting one. They had such a hot start, then they got kind of beat up by our top 4 teams over the past 2 weeks, but they still sit in a decent position, you know, at their 6-2 currently. So it's very tough to look at this team, or rather 6-3, and it's very tough to look at this team and make a solid assessment as to where their power level actually stands.
Right. I think it's kind of like the reverse TL, where TL starts with some roster problems, and they go through an easier stretch, whereas Envy came in with a solid roster, won a lot, and then they went through a rough stretch.
Right.
And so that's why I think this matchup's going to be really interesting today, is because you're just going to see, is Team Liquid on the rise, is Envy dropping, or was it just kind of how their two, you know, schedules worked out, and Envy really is the better team.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, later today, Liquid and Team Envy will face off in our first rematch of the split. And these two teams, well, they're quite different than when they met in Week 1, because again, we have to remember, all right, Team Liquid now has 2 new players. They don't have Moon, they don't have Piglet. They're going to be playing Envy with Fabi and Dardoch. That means a much more aggressive jungler, as well as, and then a shift in styles in terms of the types of champions that they're playing in the AD carry role. So Envy's going to have to make a ton of adjustments just in this rematch.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about playing against Piglet, you have to think like, okay, we got to keep our bot lane afloat. Maybe we 2v1 to avoid this lane pressure, this kinds of stuff. It's totally different when you play against Fabi, because he's going to be on the Ashe, the Sivir, playing a utility thing, and it's a lot more, where's Dardoch going to go? Is he going to snowball Phoenix, Lorlo, or
He's going to go with Lorlo, yeah. Now
yeah.
We've seen Lorlo with like Rek'Sai Shen. They love that combo, and Lorlo's been very good on that Shen. So I don't think Envy's job is going to be easy today, given the shakeups that Liquid will throw at them. Now, last night we discussed our biggest surprises and biggest disappointments of the summer split. Freak and I wanted to extend the same question to you. Positive surprise, a bit of a disappointment. What are you looking at
for me, the positive surprise is definitely Envy. We kind of touched on them a little bit already in this segment, but I think even you heard them say last night that they were expecting to come in as like maybe a 6th place team, happy to make the playoffs, and they're seeded number 4 right now, which is really impressive. And I think it was definitely a surprise. They looked good. It didn't seem like, when you saw the best of ones, a team could get out to an early lead.
You could fluke your way.
A little bit fluke your way to like middle of the standings. But these guys have won best of 3s against a number of teams in this league, so you know that they deserve to be where they are right now. It's just a question of, as the rest of the league improves, are they going to improve with them, or have they kind of tapered off? So they're definitely a bright spot so far in the season for me.
All right, disappointment?
I have energy. It's not that, not like we went into this like, wow, they're going to be a top 5 team and they're disappointing in that regard, but just the whole storyline with the team. Like, you want Quas's redemption, you want GBM and OQ to prove that they were the right people to use import slots on and invest in and all this stuff, and it's just fallen so flat for me. It's just not worked out on so many different levels. It's just a disappointment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's an unfortunate case of expectation versus reality, which is that our last remembering of Quas is when he was at his peak performance and very dominant in the top lane. So you kind of have an expectation that he'll come in and step up to that level soon.
Right.
If not immediately, soon.
Right.
GBM, we have a similar expectation. This guy is very good at League of Legends. He should stomp lanes. He should help carry games. OQ, same thing. There's been so much hype around this guy since he came over from Korea and through the challenger scene. This guy is going to prove himself, and he's a top tier 80 carry. We're still waiting to see that, and it hasn't come to fruition quite yet.
Yeah, I think it's just almost style too. Like I think GBM's really good, but just like I don't think he can be the primary carry of a team. He needs to be in a team with someone else as the primary focus, or like a very solid team where everyone's contributing. And with him being so disjointed, he can't shine at his like team fighting prowess because they're usually not in a great spot.
And I think it's very clear that they're still figuring that out, as we do see them sometimes disjointed around the map. Now, before today's matches begin, I want to take a look at the current standings, just so we have a little refresher there. TSM is at the top of the table with their still undefeated record. Immortals hold second place, while Cloud9 and Envy are now tied for third. Liquid has moved into fifth place, followed by Apex to round out our top 6 teams, and CLG is just ahead of the rest of those bottom 3 teams. Now let's take a look at what's in store for us this weekend. Today on NALCS1, the Battle Arena plays host to Energy versus Counterlogic Gaming in the first series, followed by Immortals versus Apex. Phoenix 1 faces off against TSM on NALCS2, with Liquid and Envy battling in the late series. Now tomorrow, be sure to come back and check out our match of the week, where the Battle Theater will showcase Immortals versus Cloud9 in a matchup that will help settle the top of the standings. Now, I think that this matchup has become increasingly interesting given Cloud9's improvement from their first time they played. Immortals got the better of them the first time around in a 2-1. In what a lot of people said was still a winnable series for Cloud9.
Sure.
Cloud9 looks better now, improved, so this should just be a better matchup.
You would think so.
You would think.
I would think so as well, but one thing to point out for Immortal side is Pobelter is like taking over a number of games now and really kind of just giving the win, whereas normally it would be like Huni Rainover making some early moves and there's some explosive TP play or something like that, and Immortals kind of jump to a lead. I think a lot more of it's now is Pobelter's roaming. We saw him last week have some monster Azir plays and things like that, just in the side lanes, getting out and looking to make plays. So.
But that's why I think that's one of the reasons why I think this matchup is more exciting. Because typically you look at Jensen, Bjergsen, and you go, okay, those two are the best mid laners in North America.
Not much going to happen.
Yeah, Pobelter, though, he's making his case for like, no. This is a conversation of 3 mid laners, not just 2. So I'm going to be included in that conversation.
For sure.
His matchup against Jensen in the mid lane is one of the ways that he gets to prove that he really does deserve all the hype that he's received in this split in particular. Well, as you're watching all the action today, make sure to let us know whenever you see an incredible moment. We need your help to highlight today's best moments, like this call out by I'm Not Perry from last night's series. Meteos, I worship your steals. Let's check it out.
Meteos is in the area. He's gonna try for a steal, but I don't think he'll make it in time.
Got flash and smite, and Phoenix wants to assassinate him.
Death ray damage, not quite enough. Meteos hero, no Lola goes, he stole it!
I threw Hawk shot.
Oh
my gosh.
Nice. Feels good, man.
He had 200 health himself.
Yeah. The split seconds where you see that Victor laser come over the wall just a little millisecond too late. If he pops him before he gets over that wall, no Baron steal. But
yeah. It's a feel-good Baron steal. Unfortunately, they did not walk away with that win, even with the Baron steal, but it definitely kept them in the game and kept it close for some time before Liquid was able to pick it up. Well, keep those tweets coming throughout the weekend, pointing out your favorite moments with the hashtag LCS Big Plays. But now, without further ado, it's time to send it over to our casters to fire up today's games.
Thank you very much, Dash. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Battle Theater. I'm Rivington Bisson III. I'll be casting today's game with the one and only Joshua Jat Leesman.
Hello, Riv. That is way too much of an introduction. I forgot about Canada Day yesterday. I grew up in Canada. I was there for over 20 years.
Son for
Happy Canada Day, by the way. It's a little belated, but
that's all right.
It's another year.
Everybody likes belated. It's fine. We're locked in for our first series. It's going to be Phoenix 1 versus TSM. That's why you're in the Battle Theater. That's why you're watching LCS2. This is a tale of 2 teams. TSM looking to stay perfect, while Phoenix 1 is still on the hunt for the LCS victory, that first one.
Yeah, like you say, 2 completely different stories. For TSM, because they're already undefeated and now they're up against an 0-8 team, this is an opportunity to show that they can stay focused and continue to improve regardless of their opposition. Now, to speak to their successes a little bit, they've been playing an incredibly high-pressure game. Bjergsen pushes mid lane, Hanser pushes top, Doublet and Bioforce push bottom, and that allows Svenskeren to live in the enemy jungle. You can see there they control 67% of all buffs in their wins, which is 6% above the league average for teams in wins. So like everyone obviously controls more buffs when they win.
Yeah.
TSM is just another level beyond that.
And TSM will surely bring the heat from the jungle, so we'll have to keep an eye on the new jungle edition, Inori, for Phoenix One, as it's still his early going.
Yeah, it's only their second week with him actually in the LCS lineup, even though they've been practicing him with him for a while. And we can't understate how winning here would be a huge upset for Phoenix One, and it would be such a needed boost going into the second half of the split. Like, you can imagine after an 0-8 start what it would do for this team if they could take out the #1 team. But it's just their second week with Inori. It hasn't been a great split so far, and they just need to go into this game with that upset mentality.
And it's going to be even more difficult because Reddit detectives have shown us historically when you and I cast the TSM game,
they do really well.
They do really well.
So I feel like it's a little bit rigged.
It's going to be
at
tough.
this point, but it's all good.
So on the other side, Bjergsen does tell us how he intends to keep TSM in first place form.
There's a lot of challenges trying to stay at the top. I think it's really difficult to kind of continue to improve if you are the best team, but luckily I don't think we're just like the SKT level where we just smash everyone. We still scrim, we still lose a lot of scrims, and we still learn a lot from all our scrims. So I don't think we're at that level where like IMT last season maybe had trouble improving because they were such a high level compared to everyone else. But I do feel like there's always a lot of things for us to improve on, and I'm also happy with our improvement rate.
I agree as well, but I also heard IMT saying just about the same thing this time in the spring
We're
split.
always improving, man. Don't worry about it. But so far, so good for TSM.
That's right. Let's have a look at the starting lineups as we get into our first game here of the day. First up, it's Phoenix One. That means it's Zig in the top lane, Nori in the jungle, Pyrian in mid, Mash at AD carry with Gate at support, and Coach Charlie.
And they're still looking to find their footing. We'll question if they'll ever be able to in the LCS here. But on the other side, it's the #1 team so far. TSM, Haunter in the top lane, Svenskeren in the jungle, Bjergsen, who we just heard from in the mid lane, Doublelift on AD carry, and Biofrost, a new kid for TSM, but definitely seems to fit in quite well.
It's going to be a very tough game for Phoenix One. We know that already, but it's going to be a test for probably the lanes not matching up, but how they can do in the early game, really shore up any instances where they know things are going wrong. And oddly enough, I'd say try to match TSM because you know they're going to be ahead of you, and that'll keep you on at least somewhat the same ground.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so difficult because TSM has finally been able to utilize their individual skill in with their team strategy because they're able to win these matchups, and since everyone is able to apply pressure, they're getting a lot of jungle invades off. So for Phoenix One, where they seem kind of outmatched role for role, it's difficult to do those things. So like you say, either they need to just go all out, take massive risks, try and get in there, or they would need to play incredibly reactive and hope that TSM disrespects them and tries to close out the game too quickly and then capitalize on some mistakes.
They've been putting together a lot of different comps, and what we've been seeing the top tier teams running is, you know, still getting the Poppy in the top lane, still seeing that rise from Zig in the top as they feel they can flex those champion pools. So maybe hit them with something regular we've been seeing, the Sivir comp, something that all of P1 can get behind and act on at the same time.
Yeah, everyone run in at once. Smash usually has pretty good farm numbers, but has trouble getting damage off in team fights. Whether that's an individual thing or whether that's a team not zoning for him thing is always really hard to deduce. But one thing that was interesting about yesterday is we've seen a big increase in Jhin in the North American LCS as well, as far as the AD carry pool. And every team has a slightly different idea of what is first pickable or first bannable. Like Trundle played a massive role in the Team Liquid vs. Cloud9 series yesterday. And I think just getting control of a single lane for Phoenix One is incredibly important because that breaks TSM's seal on the map where they have incredible pressure. But they do go with the Karma early on for a little bit of map movement and a flex pick.
Works out. We'll probably see Biofrost taking that Nami if that is the case. That has been his back and forth for the past few weeks. I do like the bans from P1. They target some priority. They definitely leave Haunter in a pretty strong position here if he wants to. But they do get the Azir off the board. TSM to start off. We may see that Trundle in the top lane, and Haunter, or rather Svenskeren, may just grab his jungler.
Yeah, TSM has been able to be very reactive to opponent picks throughout the split because it doesn't appear to be any holes in their champion pools as of yet. Like you mentioned, they can often pick the Nami against Karma in lane. Doublelift usually goes with Lucian if it's available. Even if the enemy team picks something like Trundle, they've been able to pull a Swain against it, which takes away the Trundle's lane superiority. Here, though, they early pick two relatively generic things with Aurelia and Braum.
That's true. What am I saying, Trundle? It's Haunter. It's either Swain or Aurelia.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. But and I was also thinking Zig should play Trundle, but then at the same time, you think about Hanser, some of his best swing games have been against Trundle, even though most top laners haven't found much success on swing.
That is true. There's a lot of talk about him coming out of the Q scene, but as it gets into the professional scene, competitive, he doesn't seem to have it. Unless you kind of get a really good early game and nobody touches you, you get a few kills, and then you can kind of control it. We've seen Quas do it once or twice, but like you said, falling off usually, and may not see it here as the Trundle looks to be picked up by Zig.
Exactly. Well, now it's a smarter pick because TSM has already revealed their hand with Aurelia, so this is one of the rare times where TSM actually isn't being that reactive with their champion select, and the Aurelia versus Trundle matchup is Trundle-sided if they decide to throw that Trundle in the top lane instead of support, which would obviously still be an option.
Yep, seen that multiple times already in that lane matchup. What will TSM decide to choose? Looks like they're just going to leave Bjergsen up for last pick. Obviously, to counter everything, Lucian and Nidalee gets locked in, actually. Spencer Aaron hasn't played that one in a while.
No, he hasn't, but this will be a game where they need to get jungle pressure to aid the lanes rather than the lanes aiding jungle pressure, because if they actually are in a slightly losing matchup between Aurelia and Trundle, the gank assist and the early pressure from the Nidalee could potentially twist that lane in TSM's favor. So I understand why they would pick Nidalee in this situation, especially against Elise, where I feel like the Nidalee can greatly outpace as far as jungle farming speed, and that's going to be most likely what they try to use that pick for.
So looking to get to the lanes fast. The Sivir comp from P1. All right, I like it.
Yeah.
Get the Bard coming in, and Mash does lock in the Sivir.
Zoom, zoom, Karma mid, as they're able to flex that pick from the support to the mid lane. And also, though, well, TSM had already locked in their entire bottom lane, so really this TSM comp seems to be relatively independent to what Phoenix One has chosen, but you look at the general cohesion of that Phoenix One composition, it seems pretty strong, if a little bit lacking as far as backline access goes. So if TSM can make sure their front line stays pretty solid, or they pick something with a high amount of damage in the backline, that would be good. It's going to be tricky because of all the mid lane bans that have fallen through. I'll be curious to see what Bjerg picks now, knowing he's going up against a Karma. Taking their time with this one.
Looks like P1 will be running teleports both sides. They'll know that, and it's going to be the Zillion lock-in the mid lane. Almost more utility to go in there and help the rest of the team out. But we've also seen how strong that is from Bjergsen.
Yeah, and it's been kind of an evolution of Bjergsen, how good he's been on the enabling mid laners this split. I was actually taking a look at some of his stats. He, in his 4 games on Zillion, it is by far his highest KDA on a champion. He's actually got a 44 KDA on Zillion.
That's because you don't
in his
die.
games.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's because you can revive yourself, Jad. It's a ratio. But really, it's just like, it's the only one he has in double digits, and it's extreme how successful it is. Here, normally it was kind of to keep a Swain alive and make that unstoppable. This game, a little bit less so. He'll be able to use it on Hanser or Svenskeren if they get in a little bit too deep. It'll be very interesting to see, as TSM doesn't have a huge amount of damage, but once again, this will just be putting more into Doublelift, making sure he needs to get going, which hasn't been a problem for TSM, but could be a problem if some things go poorly in the early game.
Yeah, we actually saw, was it Liquid yesterday running something similar as well. And I remember Pastry Time saying they're focusing Dardock a lot with the Zillion experience, making sure the jungler's big, making sure he can provide a lot of utility for the rest of the team. So we'll see if they get that going. We want to know how your thoughts go on Twitter. You guys listen to us talk all the time. We want to hear what you think. If Phoenix One will pull an upset, tell everyone with hashtag P1win. Or TSM fans, hashtag TSM win. You know what to do. Show your team some spirit as we head into the game here. P1, as we've said before, rather not P1, but just getting through the half of the split. This is a point where P1 would look to turn things around. It's going to be one of their tougher games. Like we said, they should look to the match, at least in the early game. TSM here, if it's the lane swap, don't think you can take one more turret than them. They're always going to be on your inhibitor if that happens. If it's something else, just continue to try to match it. Keep up in vision. This is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a very small bug in the client that'll prevent us from loading into the game immediately. We'll get that shortly. But yeah, Riv, this is another one of these games that is just, we overuse it, David versus Goliath. It's literally the undefeated team versus the winless team. If you add their records together, it's an even number of wins and losses. They've actually played exactly the same number of games as well, like not just matches.
Right.
Phoenix One has been able to pick up 3 game wins, where TSM has had 3 game losses, while they haven't been able to clinch a best of 3 on Phoenix One side, and TSM has clinched all of their best of 3s. So obviously a Herculean task for Phoenix One to try and come in, and I'm kind of with you that you would want them to be able to jump out to a very early lead and get control of some of these lanes, because that's where TSM has just been running over people.
And depending on how this one goes, as we are about to jump back in, you have to think, if this kind of goes poorly for P1, do they start to focus solely on the bottom of the table? Look for that 7th spot. Look to get themselves maybe a little bit higher if they can, but to get themselves safe.
Oh, I agree with you, though, Riv, as we have one other pause. We'll get these tech issues resolved as soon as possible for Phoenix One. And yeah, it's obviously an incredibly difficult season for Phoenix One. Although we did hear the coach Charlie say it hasn't affected their mentality so far, and like this isn't one of the best reasons for it, but he says they have a lot of players that were on Team Impulse last split, obviously with Gate, so the losing doesn't affect their morale that much because they've been through this before and they know how they can come out of it in one piece on the other side, right? A lot of it is just about constant improvement and trying to keep your mentality up despite defeat, whereas TSM, they've actually had some of the guys, at least in this iteration, that have been through some adversity before. Like Doublelift has been in the promotion tournament down 0-2 and almost been knocked out of the LCS. And I feel like that has kind of shaped his appreciation for being on quality teams. And like they're a team that does seem to be reaping the rewards kind of the experience they've had so far in the LCS. And obviously it's easier when you're winning, but they seem to be in a very good place mentally right now.
Because you look as well at the team, like you said, on Impulse. We saw Gate doing very well there. We've seen Mash doing very well in the past. But when they try to put it on paper, it seems like, yeah, those will work together. But it almost isn't synergizing the way you would think it. And that almost becomes one of the most difficult things to surpass, is when you're going over the same speed bumps and nobody's really there to say, hey, actually, we can do it this way. And it's not always the easiest thing in the world to do. You can't just say, hey, do this. Or, hey, let's not have a bad champion select. Sometimes those things just happen. It's very hard to pick yourself back up, especially when they reoccur, and you really don't get much of a chance to find a way to resolve those issues because they keep coming back at you again and again.
Yeah, I agree. For what it's worth, I've heard very good things from the guys on Phoenix One about the organization. It's very supportive, so hopefully it's an environment for which they can grow in the future. But as we said in the game intro, they'd make a pretty huge statement if they could somehow pull off an upset here.
Absolutely. Especially how valuable this time becomes playing Team Solo Mid 8-0 right now. Obviously going to learn a few things in the game. We'll see what P1 picks up here in game 1 of this series. Obviously going to get the deep wards in. P1 will respond as well, so no blind lane swaps, if they can avoid it.
Yeah, and it's definitely TSM who very quickly goes for the wards. Bard is always a really difficult champion to lane against early on in the 1v1s, but Sivir not so much. So like, this is a situation where I feel like TSM would have the confidence in their ability to lane any matchup, but maybe they're just going to try and use their team play in this particular match to just outpace Phoenix One. Phoenix One is a team who hasn't been able to keep up with lane swaps very well. They haven't been able to play the early game very well. So instead of relying on Anori getting off good ganks or something, TSM is just going to try and normalize the map almost as much as possible and just play a clean lane swap game.
Just getting his laugh on.
Oh, wow. I mean, a super pull, essentially, from TSM. Doublelift actually helping Svenskeren slingshot ahead in this game. And they're going to have a couple mechanics to get Svenskeren ahead of Anori in this game, actually. Both from that early pull, but also because every time he runs by mid lane, Zilean could complete one of his level ups with the new Zilean passive from the rework. So this is about as fortuitous of a jungle start as you can hope for as a jungler. He's gotten pulls from both his AD carry and his top laner. And as he's finishing off red, Haunter's already started the Raptors for him. So this is going to be a very far ahead in Italy.
Big buddy system. Svenskeren as well likes to power farm the jungle, so if he can get ahead and understand that his lanes are already being aggressive, he actually may not have to get there to gank. He can just keep doing this. Now invading the top side over for P1, we're going to see Anori doing the same thing on the bottom.
Yeah, so pretty mirrored junglers. Nidalee is going to be a little bit faster than Elise, both from a champion kit and from a help perspective. But like you said, it's pretty much mirrored. The supports have gone in to the strong side of their map on the enemy jungle, like with Anori and the blue buff here. Like, it's already been scouted out to know that no one started there, so that they can kind of take all the camps. So both junglers will essentially do full clears.
Ooh, Haunter. I think he took a few too many turret shots up on the top side. He went down to a sliver of health there, but he'll be safe. They're still going. Looks like he's healing back up on the minions. Semi-safe plays all around. Must have just been a minion mistake as the wave came in. We can see that they're actually going to all take it down together on that one.
Yeah, varying degrees
in solo
of
for
gold
Zig.
share for these guys, whether or not they give all the gold to the top laner or whether or not they share it a little bit with the marksman. See if there's any type of item break points they want to get. One thing that allows Doublelift to do is pick up double long swords, whereas Mash has picked up a cull very early on. So if this does actually swap back into a place where the 80 carries are in lanes together, Doublelift would be able to bully pretty heavily with his double longsword instead of just a cull.
It seems like Team have foregone the banning his Lucian, realizing it was all a ruse.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be banned.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good 80 carries in the meta right now, and I mean, even if it also varies by region. If you look at European LCS, they don't even care about Lucian. Like, he's hardly picked or banned anymore. In NA, it's heavily about, you know, the Ezreal and the Jhin and the Sivir. So, like, Lucian is a generically decent 80 carry, but by no means can you say, like, oh yeah, this guy's just OP. It's just something Double is very comfortable with, and it fits into a lot of different team compositions. So it works to TSM style.
Svenskeren already trying to get his hands dirty. The wards are there for P1. Doesn't look like they're going to help them, though. They'll just realize Svenskeren has taken away all of their resources. Mash and Gate just about to be pushed topside, mirrored again by Doublelift and Biofrost. So for that fact, we said it'd be good if P1 were able to kind of keep it even Stevens here in the early part of the game. And if they can do that structure-wise and kind of gold spike in that terms, they should be all right. Svenskeren seems like he's going to be the one trying to get something started, though.
Yep, I think it's still just a bit of a farm off. Inori did have to give that one Raptor camp off, but he's really just one camp behind Svenskeren, which isn't bad as an elite. The turrets are trading at a very even rate. So as far as, you know, TSM running over Phoenix 1 or out lane swapping them to some insane standard, that hasn't happened. Phoenix 1 has been completely on pace with what TSM has done thus far and are still in a position where they can pull out ahead if they make one good play. TSM is tanking the minion waves as much as possible. It's actually a fairly greedy yet efficient way of doing this lane swap. Like, this assumes that no one is even close. And TSM didn't actually have wards in the red buff right there, so that was a very dangerous play that Doublelift just made. If Inori had been super greedy, he could have very easily just like snuck in, flashed, and like pressed a couple buttons on Doublelift to get a kill. But unlikely, because that would have been a risky play, and this is a fairly safe played lane swap. This is where TSM is going to cash in that tempo advantage from Svenskeren being slightly ahead, and the fact that they swap bottom first, so they get the mountain grade.
There was a post that they don't get many elders, but they've definitely switched to a team that gets a lot of early dragons. The swap always being in their favor, or making sure it is, and they're able to come away with the first mountain this time. Very successful for them. Let's see where they decide to move for this. 50 to 50 in the mid lane, as that only got literally level 1 pressure, and we haven't seen anything else since. Level 6 is just being hit there. Haunter's level 3, as he's now heading up against Mash, and Zig is 4 as he returns to his top side lane. And they're actually starving for CS a little bit too here with the pressure they were giving junglers in the early game.
Yeah, they just continue to swap back and forth, which is a little peculiar because I feel like Doublelift and Biofrost could start getting aggressive, and Haunter moves up a little bit too far. There's a chance he'll have to flash the next Cosmic Binding from Gate.
Yep.
Or even just an auto attack.
That was good, yeah.
Inori wants it.
Good hit. Oh, the step back, it's the boomerang that comes through, though. First blood going over to Mash with the flash and ignite blown. Inori also blew his summoner.
Yeah, Haunter really greeted for some CS in that lane. Has to use his summoner spell as well as falling, and that gives first blood to the 80 carry who started Cull, which is very fortuitous for Phoenix 1 and can allow Mash to get potentially a decent gold lead early.
Just a little love tap to the mid lane.
Yeah, and just like that, the map pressure is gone as well because they burned so many flashes and Svenskeren had to give way that TSM's entire blue buff side of the jungle is warded now. Inori had picked up his Tracker's Knife and Gate had already picked up his Sightstone from the lane swap, so as soon as they got that window of map pressure, they completely covered it with wards, which would buy them map pressure for the duration of those wards, essentially.
Also realizing the top laner, Zig, probably saying, I'm low, he's got to be low. We should take him down. We said he was level 3 to Zig's level 4, so Mash also on top of that with the run-in. Now it's going to be a bit of a CS discrepancy between Team Solo Mid's top laner and P1. And we're actually seeing, coming up on 8 minutes, a 600 gold lead for P1. All said and done, lane matched up between CSD at 10 up TSM is up 1.2K. It looks like P1 may be able to stop that for once.
Yeah, that's TSM's average goal to 10
Yep.
has been 1.2 thousand. That doesn't look like it's going to be the case, at least for this game against Phoenix 1. And that's because Hanser went overly aggressive when they didn't have vision control. And this does throw TSM's early game plans a little bit out of whack. You just saw Spenskaren, you know, invading, doing his normal thing, trying to live in the blue buff area. But the rest of his team was in base. And now, because this side of his jungle has been completely littered with wards, while he will be able to continue farming, it gives the rest of Phoenix 1 a lot of freedom to push up lanes. Like, I actually think this is a minor mistake. Speaking of which, MASH should be pushing another wave for sure. They just saw all of TSM in wards, and Drake isn't even up right now. So MASH should have pushed that wave. It was a free wave of farm, and it would have created pressure. Instead, though, he's running bottom lane.
That's their call, possibly saying we don't have enough wave clear to do this, but it doesn't even seem like TSM's going to be able to activate, knowing that MASH is gone. Maybe they hesitate now.
Yeah, there's a chance that they were just worried about the 5-man dive. TSM's been doing a lot of that.
But that's the respect you see some teams giving and some teams saying, we can forego that, keep pushing that top lane like you were saying.
Exactly. Why get the deep wards if you're not going to put pressure on the other side of the map when the team reveals themselves in the wards? But it was technically a risk. They didn't want to take it since they already have the first blood.
Never a good game for the opposing team when Bjergsen gets a mid lane without any pressure. He's been able to do just about everything he wants, almost getting the Rod of Ages finished now to the Athenes on Tyrion's Karma. We haven't actually seen action from either of them contributed to these fights as the other blue is traded over. So I bet you more farming here in the mid lane.
Yeah, I still really don't agree with this item choice from Pyrion. He does it every game, but looks like we're going to have a bit of a tango in the bot lane. It's done.
Bit of a bind, very nicely done.
Yeah, so this is something that Phoenix 1 continually does. They're picking themselves into these low damage team competitions with an Elise jungle and the Sivir who won't be doing large amounts of damage until late game. And that's another gank on Hanser.
Volatile Spiderling is going to connect, but Equilibrium Strike locks up Inori. He's still got repelled to get in range and locks it down with a quick bite.
And they don't have the vision control to allow Hanser to be as greedy as he is in these lanes. So they're punishing him very well with the ganks. The other side of TSM still has to be careful against Mash and Gate.
I'm so surprised they're making it look clean, too. No real follies in these going in. Binds are hit. Maybe a few flashes for the first one, but P1 keeping control of the map here and actually causing teleports now to come in from TSM to be wasted in defense. Not wasted, but used in defense.
Now with one teleport down, they try and TP into the bottom lane.
This may... Now, Temper Fate actually is enough. That's going to be Doublelift going down quickly. He's back up with the Chrono Shift, and they're onto Zig. Biofrog's actually able to get out of range with the stand beside me up, or I should say Unbreakable, and a double kill for Bjergsen after saying we haven't seen much from the mid lanes. It seems like Pyrion is getting chased out, and P1 tried to bite off more than they can chew. After a top lane engage, they lose a lot in the bottom lane.
Wow, and the idea of that play for Phoenix 1 was actually very commendable. They see the teleports burn to the top side, double TP down to the bottom side, make a fight the TSM count at number, but when Bjergsen teleported in time for the revive on a Doublelift, as well as the kill, it just kind of backfired, but now TSM may have overstayed. Biofrost looks like the for sure death. Doublelift, just help him run. Loop-de-loop. Oh my goodness, that escape. Very sneaky.
When it's all just out of range, everything. Unfortunate for Inori there. And we'll see this play one more time. If they had Temper Fate here, much different story.
Perfectly timed double TP, actually. They come in exactly the same instant. But the double bomb ends up getting a kill and a 4-man stun, whereas Doublelift gets revived to full health. So really, that kind of goes to show you the power of Zilean when you get maximum value out of all of your spells. AoE on the 4-man stun as well as the revive on the one target that was focused, and that gives time for Spenskaren to come over. Doublelift is able to pick up the kill, and the kill distribution is also very ideal for TSM. 3 kills to the mid laner, 1 to the marksman.
Crazy how it happens in team solo mid games like that. Even when a team has a slight lead, it seems like there's one collapsing fight where you say, yep, that's when it happened. 12 minutes in when TSM teleported bot lane and they just got a bunch of kills back. We're down a little bit, now up 1,000 gold.
Yeah.
And we'll have the confidence to start controlling the map here. Hopefully P1 does not hesitate because they're playing quite well.
The 2 kills on a Hanser looked like they were starting to break TSM's control of the map, but really, Phoenix One invests all of their stuff in a double TP play that is just perfectly stuffed by TSM, and like you say, it puts them right back into it. Now Bjergsen with the 3 kills, completed Rod of Ages, is working on more. And Doublelift is going to be working up towards his Lucian items when they had a chance of starting to shut him down as well. Like, that play was very much a breaking point. If the play works for Phoenix One, they could have actually gained full control of the game, but TSM was undeterred by the early deaths of Hanser and were able to turn it around very well.
And it felt like it would have been a smart play too. You have Hanser's TP down, why not try it? This is our upper hand.
The idea was smart, it's just the execution wasn't. Bjergsen and TSM outplayed it. Phoenix One grouped up for 4-man double stun.
It's one thing TSM has been always good at, is reacting to plays very fast. Looks like they're going to start reacting to throwing more wards down. Pink wards are set up in a place that can somewhat be defended by P1, so they'll get some good value out of those, but it looks like TSM is going to start threading right through those pink ward areas and really not even giving vision.
Let's go back to what was working, says Phoenix One.
Oh, when you counter your teammate and you didn't want to? Unfortunate, the repel's there, but the Q has been used. The flash just in range with the subjugate on is able to drop Hanser. Get his flash once again.
Yep, he's continually trying to get the minion wave before he has the safety of his turret without deep wards. And normally, for most of the split, this has been working for TSM because Svenskeren has usually been giving him vision of the enemy jungler, but Inori just hasn't been running into Svenskeren, and then Hanser isn't respecting it. Ideally, like Phoenix One was going to be up there anyways because of the giant wave that was about to crash into the turret, and then he'd be dove at the turret. But Hanser's making it too easy for Phoenix One. Yep. He's giving them the ganks before they even need to do it, and he's not even making them dive the turret for it. They need... That thing will expire. That was a big misplay by Phoenix One, actually. Zig should have been over there to pick it up, but he was shoving out the top side, so Inori ends up getting the Glimpse of the Void, and that will not help Zig's 1v1 ability against Hanser.
Kind of may show you how tense or hurried they feel to grab these things. We don't have time to wait. TSM will be honest. We have a chance now. But their window was actually a little bigger than they thought. They have the wards to almost prove it on that top side, too. Playing a little skittish. 58 to 42 in that mid lane, or 158, I should say. Just a little bit of a lead to Bjergsen, but the kills are really what catapulted him up once he got to the bot lane. He's been able to sit nice and pretty in the mid lane for now, coming up on that level 12. Be a little bit healthier when you revive from him. Doesn't look like he's really had to give it to any of his teammates just yet. Now, 1 point fart, still just 1,000 gold up. TSM slowing things down so Hanser can finally get this pushed up with the wards he needs.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes definitely have not been stomping for TSM. They've had enough control of the game because of the turnaround, but Phoenix One is playing them pretty tight. It's just the question of whether Phoenix One can sustain that level, which throughout the split they have not been able to, and TSM has been. So you still expect TSM to win this game, but it definitely hasn't been super stompy as of yet.
A tight go. Tempered Fate goes out. Minions accounted for.
That's the thing, though. Every single person was able to dodge Tempered Fate. And then they nearly kill Gate on the backside. So now the push can continue with even more ferocity.
Nidalee actually works fantastically with Zilean. Whether or not you hit the bombs, you still get the path that somebody's going to walk a little bit more, right? It's a telling path. They have to go around it, and Svenskeren has been nailing these spears.
Double takes a big shot to the face, but they have the Nidalee for the heal. So look at this turret damage we're able to put down.
Poke to deal with on both sides. TSM cannot do anything without minions. And they get themselves backed away quite quickly. As we were saying, Titanic Hydra for Zig towards the top, so if he actually starts getting into a fight, he may not be able to heal it up.
Yeah, he's going to be so much stronger than Hanser in 1v1s, though, so like, this is the play that continually works for Phoenix One, has been shutting down Hanser. It's just a matter of can they deal with the other 4 people on TSM. TSM needs to get that pink ward out of their jungle. Hanser, yeah, he gets the Raptor buff proc. That'll show him. Very key that he's able to control that vision.
Something we mentioned in the beginning. If they could get Hanser going, that would be big. We figured Zig would give him some trouble, and Inori actually made sure that happened. They focused Hanser down quite a few times. Somebody on that Aurelia who has been able to carry games for TSM. But right now, it's looking like Zilean could still provide that from the position of Bjergsen. Hanser caught, but how much does Pyrian really want of this? The team coming down slowly as Glacial Fissure disengages. It looks like they're going to go ahead and walk this one out. Coming up from the bottom is Mash with that on the hunt, so they may actually bite down hard on this.
Firefrost is in a bit of trouble, but he is able to get the angle to jump over the wall. Phoenix One was good there in stopping Svenskaren's aggression. It's actually been something they've been fairly good at all game, is just having good wards up and not letting Svenskaren get anything going. He's continuing to just farm.
It's a lot of darkness in that jungle right now. There are a lot more pings than there is people walking in.
This
They're
is
all
really
pretty much
dangerous for
afraid.
Sven, actually. Here comes Inori.
There it is. The Zig turnaround in time, though. Svenskaren's going to try to look for the quickest way out, and he actually hopes that he hits Zig and would be able to jump over the wall, but he finds his way out anyways to the brush with the help of Hauntzer's Transcendent Blade. Svenskaren out by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah, and this is Phoenix One trying to leverage their point of strength on the map, and TSM not necessarily playing around it that well. Hauntzer's still behind Zig. Svenskaren comes in blind, nearly gets counter-ganked. Inori very close to being able to burst out Svenskaren. If Zig could have just collapsed down in a little bit more of an efficient fashion, they could have had it. Now they're going for Haunter yet again. He just is not playing cautious enough.
And usually when you see this, TSM is in a position to take more turrets, to do something. But they're actually pushed out even. That kill goes over to Gate, unfortunately, but a kill is a kill.
Yeah, and I mean, Haunter had this huge wave crashing, but literally all Zig did is just wait in a brush, let him run by, and Haunter is making so many unsafe assumptions. We've been mentioning all year how TSM has been playing risky and getting away with the risk, but that's, like you say, because they have the small risks happening on every part of the map at the same time. So the other team is punished for punishing a risk. That's just not the case this game, and Haunter has been killed 4 times.
Look at this. A bit of a 2v1 in the bot lane. Mash taking out the CS before Doublelift can really get any more damage done. They're not looking to dive him either. TSM realizes they're losing a bit of control, so we see them back up. Dragon in another 30, so they're going to grab that. And Hauntzer's going to have to deal with Zig once again, back up to the turret.
Yeah. And at the moment, TSM doesn't have anyone who's going to be able to deal with this Trundle. It even harkens back to Champions, like where he said Trundle could be a big thing if TSM doesn't pick Swain against it. Gonna get this turret, though.
This is the one thing P1 has to be careful of. Don't be one-dimensional. Make sure you can still control the middle of the map. Make sure you can still control everything else. Is this going to be a solo kill? Bjergsen's Chrono Shift is up, so he will use it to come back. Mash has to be careful. The rest of TSM has been pushed off in the mid lane. Mash tries to go forward. Bjergsen's going the same way. And they're actually taking each other out there in the Retribution kill. And now it's going to try to be the trade to P1. TSM looks to get a bit more out of this, but Svenskaren cannot connect with the spear.
Yeah, really awkward fight right there as Bjergsen got siloed off from the rest of the team, and I think Mash did mess that up a little bit. He's unable to check his auto attack on proccing the ultimate from Bjergsen. He ends up popping the revive and then is finished off by Doublelift while he's waiting around for Bjergsen to come back up again. So they do get the kill, but Mash loses his own life, and unless they can get some mid lane pressure off this, it's not really a positive trade. Oh, this could be a positive trade, though. Oh, dear.
Svenskaren, he's been trying to do a lot for the top lane, be there for Haunter. Now is he going to be going down for troubles of warding? The team's there to back him up, though, and TSM, they're all going in on the bad choice play, but that makes it a better one if everybody's behind it. 22.5 minutes in, TSM continue to find positive plays in when their team goes down first.
Yeah, crazy actually that, again, Svenskaren is just in this really foolish situation, and you can't say all planned there, but TSM burns the teleport of Bjergsen and is able to turn it around quite effectively. Now Haunter, because he's picked up 2 kills from these previous fights, is actually in an okay spot. He's kept his farm up while dying all those times. It's actually equal gold to Zig with Cloud Drake coming up yet again. Plus they have a teleport advantage, so TSM can actually control this.
Gold lead slowly growing as well. TSM's going to be a lot more confident to get forward wards down, more plays, more picks. See if Svenskaren can help Haunter out. He's pushed up on the top, but more action down in the bot lane here. Period has himself a little too far up, and nobody's going to be able to help him.
Yeah, and Doublelift is starting to get very fed once again. 303 and his items are completed on Lucian, but this is bold. No Drakes, low level, 22-minute Baron.
They said that stings.
Yeah, and they back away. That's going to be a big, it's a big time investment actually. TSM's now able to push the mid and the bottom lane.
I think that's what they were worried about when they started as well. We're losing inhibitors if we do this.
Oof,
TSM's always ready. If you're not on the map and they're not going for an objective, your inhibitors or your turrets are falling.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Phoenix One playing a little hastily right here. I think they don't trust their scaling with the mid lane Karma, even though with the Death Cap completed, Furin will actually be doing a good amount of burst damage, but like super late game, the mid lane Karma's damage really falls off. And with the Zillion ultimate to keep people alive, it's quite strong. Now they push mid lane though. TSM had just killed the bottom turret. Maybe we end up seeing them collapse to try a fight here.
There is the TP from Pyrian, but he's already left base, so it's not going to be a home guard rush. He's going to have to shield himself. It looks like P1 is actually trying to run themselves to safety here. TP comes in just on the top side of Baron, and they will actually have a full 5 now.
Yeah, but just TSM walking up there burned several cooldowns from Phoenix One. Mash had to ultimate, Pyrian ended up teleporting up. So this is a nice quick little map move. Will now probably give them the window to go and take this second Cloud Drake of the game.
It might just be Double Lift and Biofrost together. Biofrost backs, and they're heading for top again.
Yeah, Phoenix One really struggling to figure out exactly what to do. They'd started their recalls, and they canceled their recalls. They want to push the top turret, or they want to threaten Baron. And TSM needs to respect all of the possibilities. That's something that they haven't been able to do this game, which is why Phoenix One has been able to pick up some of these 6 kills and actually play it fairly close. 4-man Death Brush that no one would actually be expecting. When Double Lift takes this Drake, though, Phoenix One will assume there's more people down there and probably just finish their recalls.
Unfortunate. It's definitely going to be tough to watch these parts of the game as well on replay for the team, knowing that these are the options that you have with a few more wards that could have been placed ahead of time, knowing a Drake's coming up, and TSM has such favorable play towards Drakes. At least one could tell you that you would have that top turret, right, in a 5v4. Little things that we see, obviously, with the God's Eye view, but it's always harder to predict in-game.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't call this, if TSM's able to close out the win, I don't think this is a win TSM would be happy with. They have huge rivals coming up when they play against CLG soon, and this is the team that they were supposed to be able to beat very easily, kind of the last step towards the perfect first half of the split. They're still in a decent-sized lead. The 3 Drakes should not be understated, and they still have a gold lead, but the number of unnecessary deaths they've been getting caught out by are not trending in the direction TSM would like to go.
Definitely hard on themselves. You see them getting up from this match probably with a bit of a smile on their face. A good job, GG. But like you said, not pleased with getting the early advantages they should have and being able to play those. Trying to get a stab onto a Nori there, but nothing connects. And TSM now starting to basically flex their muscles, say we can get kills here, and start to whittle down the inner parts of the base.
Yeah, game definitely slowed down, kind of looking for the picks. Phoenix One technically has more ways of starting fights, and Bjergsen caught out of position.
Tempered Fate's not going to allow him to really get stunned by that. They're happy to refight on this one. Haunter, another Blade Surges, that was onto a dead minion. He's going to lock down Zig for now. There's the Subjugate and the Flash. You can see they don't want this unless they're very much in a defensive position, possibly under that second tier turret. Zig's teleport is up. Haunter used his to get into that.
Yeah, I actually think the Bard ultimate wasn't all that great.
Right.
Bjergsen would have had to burn a flash to get around the pillar, but the Bard ult just allowed time for Haunter to teleport in and the rest of TSM to help out. Now Honori's caught! Wow. Instantly proc the Bard stun. He cannot even go up to repel. And now they turn straight to Baron with the Mountain Drake for enhanced speed. Honori would have to teleport in on this if they want to stop it. Or Zig would.
Gates there.
No jungler to steal.
Cosmic Binding. The TP is actually at a good time, forcing TSM to stop and focus the kills. They're going to go for the fight. 1800 onto Baron. That's going to be Zig going down. And looks like Baron could be perfectly fine here. Sven's going to smite, and they are going to be going for the fight. Bjergsen looking for a double, but he knows he doesn't have the time just yet. He needs a new front line, so he backs up. Gives the speed to FLICKR with a bomb to carry that one in. Feline-like. They're on to Mash. He's way too far forward, and he gets taken down by Haunter. And TSM continue to grab at that fight with extremely low health.
Yeah, really pushing the limits of what they can do right now. Smart use of the Zillion ultimate onto FLICKR while they're on the Baron pit. Then when FLICKR was dead, they waited until he revived before bursting the Baron down, and then incredible aggression at the very end of that fight while chasing kills, but no one overcommitting to the point of death. So well played all around there by TSM, even though it was fairly risky.
So this was the loss of your jungler, so it only makes it that much harder, but you have to check, right?
Basically, you can't smite steal, so the only way for Phoenix One to stop this is to go in for a full-on fight, so that's why the teleport, I think, was too delayed. They should have teleported in a little bit earlier, but here, they get a lot of damage down on the Svenskeren. Baron is actually prevents Phoenix One from stopping damage on Svenskeren until Chrono Shift can wear off, so he's able to revive with high amounts of health. Pyrian throws in a Q that was attempting to steal, but that also means he doesn't have the Q for the runaway team fight.
Yeah.
And then Svenskeren flashes in with the bomb on him, but cannot let the bomb detonate. Now Doublelift, he's gonna need some help.
Ooh,
Bjergsen makes it in.
Chrono Shift in. That was just after his TP. Bjergsen gets there just in time, and they're going to keep pushing forward once again. And clearly, TSM has a hold on the game now. Rinse and repeat is their motto, and they're going to keep going for these outer turrets. They weren't able to finalize the one in mid, but they have a wave coming up here for the top tier.
Yeah, the second time that Bjergsen's been able to teleport at the last possible second and save Doublelift. Keeping that deathless game alive for Double.
Must be that Lucian.
Yeah, now they just take a bunch of turrets down. And they're continuing their push.
This is the confidence now on the first inhibitor turret. Zig doing what he can to throw some love taps out, and there's Svenskeren diving headfirst into the fight to make sure he finalizes gate. They don't have much support to give themselves safety. That's a Nori going down as well. They're finalizing the rest of the kills. Zig is in the eyes of TSM, and they're going to be looking for the Nexus turrets here. Just sub 30 minutes. It seemed like P1 held on for quite some time, and then TSM took right over.
Yeah, TSM sensed weakness. They turned on with their team composition. Bjergsen and Doublelift had the right kill distribution, and the guy who started the game 0-4-0 is actually tied for the most kills on the team, as Hans just been able to pick up some kills on the backsides of these fights. And I think this is a 30-minute win.
It's going to be a 30-minute win for TSM, 15-6, with just about a 10,000 gold lead. First game of the series going over to TSM.
Yeah, and you say sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination. The journey for TSM was actually pretty filled with problems this game. They did not play very cleanly, but the end result is still a 15-6, 30-minute victory. So you look at the post-game 3 and you think, yeah, that's exactly what I expected from TSM versus Phoenix One. But the game itself was actually pretty close. So Phoenix One should hopefully try and keep that in mind and just trying to figure out why everything just fell apart.
Right.
But at the same time, the difference between a good team and a lower tier team oftentimes is how you deal with those close games and whether or not you believe you can win, because it doesn't seem like Phoenix One believes they can win these games, and as soon as things started going against them, everything fell apart.
And looking at what happened in the top lane, we were saying kill on Haunter, kill on Haunter. It almost makes you go back and kind of evaluate the way I was casting that and say, but did I look and see what happened after that? Because not much did. How many times did they kill Haunter and not get that top turret or not get more position on the map? So while it seems like they had something in mind, once that fizzled out, they said, oh, there's no B, there's no C. That's what we were doing.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas then you contrast that with TSM, and as soon as they take the Baron, there's just another chain of objectives where they immediately go for things. So that's what leads you to a 30-minute win.
Let's see if they have something on the docket for Game 2 on the side of P1. To get a closer look at Game 1 now, we're going to hand it back to Dash.
A fair number of stabs. The audience right now joining us from that NALCS2 stream where TSM did just pick up the victory over Phoenix One. Thank you very much for joining us. We're discussing CLG's initial victory over Energy in a very quick sub-25-minute game. An impressive showing out of the squad. So we'll continue talking about that and jumping into our final replay, which at 17 minutes into the game, an ace for CLG around the Dragon. This is just absolutely insane.
Yes.
Blew the game open.
Smithy went over the wall to try and mess with them, which gives Santorin the steal, but it just sets up this beautiful Bard ult. This is the play of the game. If you missed this because you're just joining this stream, perfect play to see. The 4-man stun into the, I think it was the 3-man knock-up into the Vlad dropping his entire combo on them. It's just brutal, and then it's just a chase down onto OQ. The Ashe isn't getting away.
It's just one of those situations, too, though, where you ace the enemy team. It's pre-20 minutes, so you're like, what do we even take? The Dragon's off the map. But it didn't matter. There was enough gold influx that, pretty soon they were at a 10K gold lead well before 25 minutes. And a pretty easy victory from that point onward.
Right. They were able to continue making basically that same play where Afro hits a long-range ult, gives Huhi time to get in the middle of them, combo, people are dying.
All right, well, player of the game, no surprise, is Aframu. Comes from all of those initiates. We saw a couple examples in the mid lane, that one there for himself, just really setting up his team. And it's just so clear when he's on Bard, his mastery of it as compared to some other players around the world.
Right, and the thing too is he's not always throwing it out at the start of a fight. We saw a lot of them at the start, but that dragon one was after they had already come in and steal the dragon. He didn't feel like he needed to whip it out right away. As soon as he sees them clumped, he's like, all right, this is the time to drop it, and he gets able to hit the big multi-man Bard stuns as well as the pickoffs like we saw on the single GBM. So,
well, that's going to do it for the first game of the CLG Energy Series. They're going to be wrapping up their pregame talks and getting back onto the stage. Time now for us to turn towards this TSM victory over Phoenix One and break this one down for you guys. The expectation here, obviously, is that this should be a stomp. You've got the undefeated 8-0 TSM against the 0-8 Phoenix One. So this, by all standards, is David versus Goliath. But I really did love the tenacity with which Phoenix One approached this matchup. They really did take him to him. And if I point out one person in particular, Inori, I feel like stepped up between his performances last week and this week.
I think it's definitely a bright spot for Phoenix One moving forward. He controlled the early game pretty hard. They were able to make Hauntzer's life kind of hell. And it's exactly the kind of thing that you're going to want to see more of.
Yeah, we're going to want to see that out of him as much as possible. Of course, it wasn't quite enough. So it was a good thought. He was keeping Haunzer down and helping Zig in that matchup. TSM, however, did find their ways to create advantages, one of which being 11 minutes in, a 4-for-0 in what was a 4v3 in favor of Phoenix One. So this is a situation where you would normally say, maybe if it were any other team, Phoenix One ends up coming out on the on the advantageous side of this trade.
Any other mid laner too, maybe, because only a Zillion's going to hit a 4-man stun into rezzing the guy that you just killed. So
right.
It looks like a really well set up play by Phoenix One, where they just kill Haunzer before that. He doesn't have TP. You have the long lane extended from TSM's bot lane, so you think you're going to punish them with this 4v3 gank, and next thing you know, it just gets turned somehow 4-for-0. You're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
That was such a well set up play by Phoenix One, and somehow, just because TSM's so good, they managed to turn it.
Right.
They had the right champions for it. It was actually just kind of insane.
Yeah, it doesn't feel too good. Player of the game here going to Bjergsen. In part, a lot because of that play itself, as you just mentioned. The 4-man stun plus res on somebody definitely gave them the advantages. But his performance on this champion, this spot, I'm waiting for someone to take him off of it because he seems comfortable using that to just allow Haunzer and Double F to be threats.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the draft, it's Azir Vlad ban, TSM bans Rise, those are the main ones. I guess on blue side, they could have maybe not banned the Rek'Sai and gone for the Zilean ban, but I mean, throwing 3 at Bjerg, you think he's just going to play Karma, he'll play something else. Like, I feel like TSM's a good enough drafting team that you want to take them off the most powerful picks, which is probably those 3, but then from there, you're going to need to beat them some other way, which we saw them try and do with the Nori snowballing top. Took a lot of kills, but it's just not enough when you're losing the bigger team situation.
Yeah, just not quite there for him, but TSM picking up that first game. We are going to head to a break, but we'll be back with both of our game 2s for both streams as we're right out the gate fast today. The NALCS returns in just 3.5.
Hey, BioGod. But I'm probably gonna need some help with that.
Oh my god, BioGod, I watch your stream all the time, dude.
Fuck my life. When you sang happy birthday, I was so happy.
Inori wants it.
Good hit. Oh, the step back, it's the boomerang that comes through, though. First blood going over to Matt. And a double kill for Bjergsen after saying we haven't seen much from the mid lanes.
Yeah. Good job. Good job.
Woo! Mash has to be careful. The rest of TSM has been pushed off in the mid lane. Mash tries to go forward. Bjergsen's going the same way. So he backs up, gives the speed to Svenskeren with a bomb to carry that one in feline like. They're on to Mash. He's way too far forward and he gets taken down by Haunzer. With just about a 10,000 gold lead, first game of the series going over to TSM.